All right, thanks for clicking on this video today. I don't know what we're going to talk about today. I really don't. I think we're going to talk about the war. And you might ask, which war? Which war are we talking about, Markel? Because if you're an American or you know anything about American history, is that America has been in a perpetual state of war for almost since the founding of the country, almost. And when I say we're going to talk about the war, that means something different to different people groups. Each generation in America had their own war. You had before Vietnam, you had World War II. Before that, you had World War I, Civil War. Now it's Iraq, Afghanistan. Now we're in Iran. Do we feel comfortable yet in America? Is America like, are we Gucci? Like, when are we going to feel comfortable enough to just not invade someone one day? Like, it's becoming like a cope almost, that Americans, we have to think of ourselves as being the most perfect nation on the planet. And one of the ways that toxic mindset manifests itself is by invading people for absolutely no reason. We had zero reason to start bombing Iran. And we'll talk about Israel later in the video, maybe, but we don't have a valid reason to be over there. At least in terms of like American interests, there's no reason we're over there in Iran. There was no American interest or need to go into Vietnam, to go into Iraq. There wasn't a need to go into Afghanistan, and we did all of those things. Hey, yo. God only allows that to happen for so many hundreds of years. There isn't anywhere in scripture or you pick a place in history where a nation as wicked and crazy as ours is allowed to continue. There is all empires fail, they all collapse, they all deteriorate, but not because of outside forces. Most of the time, it's not outside forces. It's inside forces. And inside of America, we have a death cult literally running us, right? That's why they feel the need to cover up for the fact that they're all sleeping with children. They're all pedophiles. They all eat kids. They drink the blood of kids. You might be like, Markel, can you prove this? You need to shut up, okay? Because we're beyond proof. We're beyond evidence. When the federal government just releases documents out onto the internet and they're all describing these insane ways in which Jeffrey Epstein is going across the world to compromise politicians. And once you get to that point, the evidence is irrelevant. Once we get to the point of realizing that they're eating kids, we should be hanging people. But in America, the legitimate anger that we should have towards our rulers for being wicked is redirected into we have to go into Iraq. Don't pay attention to the babies that I'm raping in the White House. We have to go into Afghanistan. You need to ignore the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was going across the planet on behalf of an intelligence agency in Israel. I'll just leave it at that. He's going around the world compromising the crown prince of the UK. He's over here compromising Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Kanye West. And that man's a liar for saying that he never went to the island and he's on the registry, right? So, we're allowing these people to dictate to us, to tell us that we need to go into a foreign country when we should be taking them over. and this might be like an insane thing to post on YouTube. I'm not monetized. I don't care what I say. Why in God's good name would I go over and fight the Afghani dirt farmer? That's what they're doing out there. That's what they're doing out there in Afghanistan. They wake up, the dude beats his wife, which is, as terrible as it is, that's not a justified enough reason or a good enough reason to go overseas and invade their country just because there's marital abuse happening. There's abuse happening throughout America. Okay, so they wake up, they hit their wife for not making the goy slop properly that morning. Then they hit their daughter because she didn't veil properly. And again, I hate Islam. I think Islam is a terrible religion. I think it's wicked. I think it's from the pit of hell. Is that a valid enough reason? Is it a valid enough reason on the secular American government part to go invade some Muslim country? No, that's not a valid enough reason. My disapproval of their religion and their culture is not a valid enough reason to go over there and bomb them with a rocket that costs the same amount as the public high school down the road. It's just you can have a disagreement with someone without bombing and killing their entire extended family. It's really that simple. And now we're getting into the point where we keep starting all these damn wars. Where are all the men who are going to fight the war? This isn't World War II anymore, where the vast majority of men, you can put a gun in their hand and they could take out the enemy. They could take out some Nazis, right? This isn't World War II anymore. This isn't Vietnam when you can go up to the hippie crack addict and put an M16 in his hands and tell him to go overseas. This isn't that time period anymore. We got dudes who are furries. We got femboys as a category of man now. We don't have masculine people who are going to go kill other people for the sake of American values. That doesn't exist anymore. Okay, that's why the military is overflowing right now with 5'1" Latina girls. And a lot of them aren't even American citizens. So what happens when we go into war with actual people? Because Iran isn't going to be the actual people that we're fighting. Right? In a World War III situation, we're not going to be just sending missiles out everywhere. There's going to be American troops on the ground dying. And now that we've invented feminism, we've invented the method by which women can work 40 hours a week, we've invented the system by which women can become men and become sterile. Who are we going to put on the front lines? We're going to put women there. I don't think women understand this at all. I don't think this even, it goes right over their head, right? Because if you want to be equal to a man, I don't even know what that means in the head of a feminist, right? Because their life is very unequal. Let's just say that, and my life is completely unequal to the life of a woman. Most women live very good lives, at least today in America. I would die to have a life of a woman. You get the state funded college degree, state funded boyfriend, because he can't find anybody else to settle with, and you get a state funded house, right? As long as you don't have kids. And if you do have kids, then you can get food stamps. And it's like, being a woman is like, there isn't any other time in history where, this much monetary, financial, and societal support has been given to women. None of that's going to be present in the army. And I don't think women realize that. I don't think women really contemplate and meditate on the fact that, yeah, actually the excuse of, um, I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl. I can't do this. I'm just a girl. I can't kill people. I can't kill people. No, it's not going to be like that. Because you guys have fought decade after decade to have that right to go be with men on the front line. So that's what's going to happen. Okay? Because the furries are not going to cut it. The incel gamer boys who are playing Call of Duty 17, right? They're not going to cut it either. Okay? Those are all cannon fodder. They're all going to die in an instant. And guess who's going to be out there with them dying in an instant? It's going to be women. And the Russians and the Chinese who kidnap the women aren't going to have the same Western Christian morality system by which we would say that there's a certain way that you should treat prisoners of war. I guess, and I take that back. Russia's okay. I'm cool with Russia. If we go into war with Russia, I'm not fighting them. I'm cool with the Russians. But spiritually speaking, Chinese soldiers, it's going to be a bad day for women. It really is. It's going to be a bad day for women. And they're all going to look back and they're going to be like, well, why didn't we stop this at some point? Why didn't we say, men have been trying to stop women from going into war for decades now, and women keep saying, no, we want to do this thing. So guess what's going to happen? You guys are going to be doing it, and it's not even going to be like the women are going to be medics, right? Because we don't do that anymore, right? There isn't in the minds of the American, there isn't a job that is maybe specifically or particularly more feminine in nature. Every job is the same job. Okay, they don't operate that on that premise in China. Okay, you know what the premise they're operating on in China is? The women are staying home to be baby making factories so we can field more soldiers out in the battle. Because this is just thinking rationally. You need children to start a war. But the Chinese men, they've been training to kill Americans with a passion. All right, so you think that they're gonna waver from their determination to the Chinese state just because they saw some 5'2" blonde girl, some American blonde girl across in the other trench? You think the Chinese soldiers are just going to put the guns down? No, those women are either getting captured or killed. Okay, and this is like, we don't think about the brutality and the cruel nature of war as Americans because we haven't experienced it yet. We haven't experienced what it's like to have your whole village burned and raped at gunpoint, right? But this is what Americans do to other countries every day. This is what the CIA does every day, right? I forget who's the popular CIA guy on TikTok right now. But what is he telling people? That there's a kill list. Every week, the president of the United States has a kill list of people he wants to be killed, and then the CIA goes out and kills those people with no due process. Most of these people who are being killed are not in the United States. They're not U.S. citizens. They're just, nameless enemies to America. And who's determining that they're enemies? The people raping kids. So it's baffling. It's baffling that we're going to go into yet another war with yet another Middle Eastern country when the people we should be fighting are in the White House. and someone's going to be like, oh yeah, it's all Trump. No, it's all of them. It's all of them. And I don't, if you think just stupidly, you shouldn't even be allowed to vote. Because what were we doing with Biden? Going into Ukraine for whatever reason. What does Ukraine provide us? Oh, that's right. Chemical weapons. Because Ukraine is the hotspot, the world hotspot for the creation of chemical weapons. The US government has labs, literal labs, where they manufacture chemical weapons in Ukraine. And we're over here cutting data cables under the sea, and Biden's like, oh, I didn't cut the cables. And then oh, it wasn't me, but it was Putin. It was Putin. Cowards. Okay? So it's okay for us to go into the Ukraine and continually meddle in the politics and the culture of those people. Okay, look, if America did not involve itself in the Ukraine, the situation would have been resolved by now. If we stop helping Israel, worst ally in the world, if that's what it means to have an ally, I don't want to have a friend. I don't want any allies. If having an ally is like having the relationship between the United States and Israel, may that love never find me. I don't want that. I don't want that type of love. Because what type of love does the Israeli government show our government? You need to bomb Iran again. Oh, you also need to take yourself out of a nuclear agreement we had with Iran so we can continue to bomb Iran. We need to bomb Gaza, right? We need to do genocide, open air genocide in Gaza. God's people, right? That's what God's people do, is they genocide people, right? Because God's not powerful enough to eliminate the threats in some other way, like he does in scripture. It's just insane. It's insane that we live in this time period where you can't criticize the people in power who should be criticized, and not only can you not criticize them, right? Most of your income, and it is most of it, most of your income is taken from you in the form of taxation, which they say is with representation, but I've never met my representative. I've never talked to them. They've never talked to me. They've never come out here publicly to talk to anybody. So in what way do they represent me? They don't represent me in terms of, I don't get a say in which wars we go into. They don't have a vote for that in America. I don't get to vote who we kill. I don't get to vote who we're spending welfare money on. Right? I don't get to make a decision or have any sort of representation about where we're spending money, who we're killing. Oh, but that's your lawfully ordained congressional representative. No, the hell that's not. That's a wolf in sheep's clothing trying to make a buck. Because what do the vast majority of people in Congress do once they get into Congress? Is they have a fake veneer. They have a surface level appearance of being about the work of Congress. But what are they all actually doing behind closed doors? Day trading with information that isn't available to the American government or the American people even. Right? So they're writing laws that affect the financial market so that their bank accounts grow larger. These are the people that we're paying taxes to. Okay? I wasn't represented in any decision to go into Iran. And the vast majority of Americans were not represented in this decision. The vast majority of Americans Okay, and I get liberals hate conservatives, but if you ask any honest conservative why they voted for Trump in the last election, it was because on the surface, which is already wrong, which is already the wrong standard by which you should be judging this on, but on the surface, Trump said he wanted to make America great again. He wanted to stop interventionist wars. He wanted to close off the border. He wanted to focus on the people who were already in this country. And that's understandable. But what does it become? Right? Right? All of these politicians have a vision for America that they never intend on fulfilling. Okay? With Biden, it was Build Back Better. We were going to rebuild all the public roads, all the public infrastructure. We were gonna tackle all these things. We had Pete Buttigieg. I don't know what his last name is, but we had the openly gay transportation secretary, and that was the whole point. Was just that he was openly gay, right? So that you wouldn't question, hey, when are we going to actually start rebuilding the roads? This is how shallow American people are, is you can just say, that man puts his penis in another man and it's all okay. You know, I'm not necessarily meaning to hate on anyone, but I'm just saying, if you live in a society where you could just say, I'm this sexual orientation and just hand wave everything else, right? You could be a dirtbag, a terrible person, but you're gay. How is that going to work on a battlefield? Right? Americans are focused on everything that will not protect and keep them safe. How is your sexual identity going to keep you safe on a battlefield fighting Chinese soldiers? Americans haven't been concerned on the right things lately, right? And what are the Russians concerned on? Eliminating Western influence in Ukraine. Then they're going to go maybe fuck with Turkey a little bit. Forgive the French. But, right, the Russians understand what their mission is, okay? They want a more spiritual, healthy society. And in order to do that, they have to push Western influence out. They have to push NATO out, right? Which is what Ukraine is. It's the border state between NATO and Russia. So I understand the Russian desire to make Russia great again. And I get why they feel like they need to be in Ukraine. And Ukrainian citizens themselves are, you could ask every individual person, they would tell you a different story. But that's what the Russians are focused on. The Russians are focused on battling NATO. What is China focused on? Right? Reproduction, battling NATO. What is Iran focused on? Reproduction, battling NATO. What is America and NATO focused on? What are we focused on? Right? In a culture that, generally speaking, hates kids, hates the idea of reproduction, hates the idea of family, tradition, all of these sort of old world ideas, and they aren't really even old world, because a lot of the idea of family tradition, the idea of family, that's just human. That's just a human thing, okay? And these are the things that China and Russia are fighting for. What are we fighting for over here in America? At least over in China and Russia, there's a unified cultural identity. There's a cultural game that they all play. There's a cultural sort of end state, right? An eschaton that they want to realize. So in Russia, it might be something like they want to realize, the creation of the third Rome. They want to be the new Roman Empire. They want to be the top dogs in in the Christian sphere in Christendom. In China, they want to be the economic powerhouse. They have a unified, albeit awful, system by which they all participate in the economic the economic system of China. Forget what other word to use right there. But all the people are directed towards a common focus. That isn't. What's the common focus in America? That everyone has a different common focus, right? So that in America, the common focus is division. In America, the common focus is, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? You think that Russians and Chinese people are talking to each other in this type of way? Only Americans in only societies and cultures that are near the end of its life, again, like I said at the beginning of the video, we turn inwards onto ourselves, right? The Roman Empire falls because of internal issues. And in America, internal issues is glorified as the thing that we should be striving towards as a people, right? As a people, we think it's okay that there's a two-party political system, which, as Christ says, a house divided against itself cannot stand. So how can Congress effectively do anything if it's divided against itself? If we're constantly arguing between conservative or liberal, which is just a made-up dialectic to begin with, right? From the French Revolution, we're arguing man versus woman, black versus white. It's all in America. Everything is a dialectical power struggle. It's like everything has to be oppositional for some reason. Nothing can be united in America. Everything has to be divided. Everyone has to have their own opinion or something. This isn't how they work and operate in these countries that are about to come over here and kill us, right? That's not how that works. Okay, and that's not how that works. They're getting ready overseas to come fight and kill us on American soil for the things that we've been doing for decades. Okay? God has to punish us for what we did in Vietnam, for what we did in Korea. Most people don't even remember the Korean War. What we did in Iraq, Afghanistan, what we've done in South America, in West Africa, East Africa, the entire continent of Africa. Americans have blood on their hands. And I mean individual Americans. I don't just mean the American government, American Congress people. I mean American people have blood on their hands because year after year, we ignore the evil atrocities our government is perpetrating across the world. And we ignore all of these things just to be more comfortable in our circus. So, I mean, I'm welcoming it. When I see the nukes fly over Chicago, I'm not going to be upset. Because at the end of the day, this is what we get. This is what we get for messing around with other people, messing around with other countries, killing young children. This is what we get. Okay? All right, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm in my car right now. I've just seen this food catering truck pull into the cemetery. I didn't know they did cookouts at the cemetery. That's kind of wild. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Get right with your family. Get right with your friends. Yeah.